two quotations this morning. One from Atkins' Pilgrims of the Lonely Road, and the other from Olive Schreiner's Story of an African Farm. The first: life does not grow more simple with the passing years, but its deeper needs are unchanging. The secret of peace is not to be sought at the end of the road, but in the spirit in which we journey. It is to be sought in the consciousness of the sustaining love of a God who is committed by the very nature of his Godhead to a real participation in all our strife, who does not release us from the battle, but who shares the fight, who does not set us free from the possibility of pain and tears, but who feels the hurt of our wounds, the salt bitterness of our sorrow, who spends himself not only with us, but for us, and in the travel of redemptive passion anticipates the victories of the Spirit. And finally, whatever pilgrimage we undertake must be undertaken in spite of the interior loneliness of all great spiritual processes. In the comradeship of our kind and all well-being must ever be our goal. We are never to forget that we are all so tied up in one bundle that peace and reconciliations in which others are not involved are quite impossible. The note of service must be deepened, and in our care for those who lie wounded or broken along the road, we shall forget our own wounds and forget our own wearinesses. So conceived, so reinforced, life is never impossible, but does indeed become an adventure whose greatness is its own best justification, and whose difficulties may become for the faithful and the discerning but stairs of ascent to radiant and triumphant regions. And then this: I like to feel that strange life beating up against me. I like to realize forms of life utterly unlike my own. When my own life feels small and I'm oppressed with it, I like to crush together and see it in a picture, in an instant, a multitude of disconnected, unlike phases of human life. A medieval monk with his string of beads pacing the quiet orchard and looking up from the grass at his feet to the heavy fruit trees. Little Malay boys playing naked on a shining sea beach. A Hindu philosopher alone under his banyan tree, thinking, so that in the thought of God he may lose himself. A troop of bacchanalians dressed in white with crowns of vine leaves dancing along the Roman streets. A martyr on the night of his death looking through the narrow window to the sky and feeling that already he has the wings that shall bear him up. An Epicurean discoursing at a Roman bath to a knot of his disciples on the nature of happiness. A Kafir witch doctor seeking for herbs by moonlight, while from the huts on the hillside come the sound of dogs barking and the voices of women and children. A mother giving bread and milk to her children in little wooden basins and singing the evening song. I like to see it all. I feel it run through me, that life belongs to me. It makes my little life larger. It breaks down the narrow wall that shut me in. The quest for peace the second aspect of our thinking. We've thought together about peace in its private and and intimate and personal terms, having to do with the quality of tranquility that under certain circumstances pervades the spirit and the mind, giving to both the spirit and the mind a sense of well-being that is not threatened by the vicissitudes of fortune or circumstance. Today I want to think for a little while about peace in a wider context. And I realize how difficult it is to think effectively and intelligently about peace in the world, in the vast world outside of ourselves. Man is a political animal. And he finds his sense of persona and his sense of private significance in a context of living human beings. And in order that this context might be stabilized so that there will be provided within this context points of referral in the light of which he may get his bearing and interpret the meaning of his life as a member of the community sustained by such a context, he organizes his life and gives it structure, and he allocates authority. And we have governments, and governments have character and personality, and dreams and hopes, which dreams and which hopes are derivative initially from the individuals who are strategically placed at fateful moments in the development of the state, but the etiquette and the morality of the state is so often not a reflection of the private dream and the great and far-reaching hope that first sent the state on its journey. One of the ways by which states guarantee themselves and seek to give always some measure of collective security to themselves is to accept as an instrument of morality and procedure the logic and the force and the vitality of violence. The Spanish philosopher Ortega Gasset says that violence belongs to the structure of human life. He says that violence operates always on an ascending and descending scale in human life, that if a group or if a man is a barbarian, then violence is the first thing to which he resorts when he seeks to force his will on another, or when he seeks to protect his will from becoming the instrument of another intent. And he says that the civilized man is the man who resorts to violence as the final court of appeal. That when he has exhausted all other measures, when everything else has been done, that can be done, and he has no live option left on behalf of the guaranteeing of his own security and life, then and only then will he resort to violence. Well, all parents in this room can think about this in terms of how they relate to their children. It would be a very interesting thing to see how you classify yourselves, whether you're a barbarian or whether you're civilized. But that's off the point. Now, the function of the state, then, is to hold itself intact, to guarantee the common life, to work out orderly procedures, and to protect itself from other states. And sometimes in pursuit of the interests of life and the interest of the fulfillment of the dreams and the aspirations of the state, these activities run counter to the functions of other states, and as a result of all of this, which is commonplace to say to you, wars come. We are a generation that has been, even in my memory and in the memory of many of you, 2 world wars and a long Cold War. This is a very sobering fact. And in one of these wars, we made a very fateful decision. And this decision was possible for us because of another aspect of the whole problem of peace, to which I want to call your attention in just fleeting glances. And that is that we are man is a part of an encompassing whole. Man is a part of a whole world of nature as well as history, and one of the tricks of the mind, and I use the word trick advisedly, one of the tricks of the mind is to establish for man a sense of his being separate, distinct, and other than the world of nature out of which he comes and in which his life is embedded and by which he is nourished. And the mind, then, the creative mind of man, brooding over the stuff of nature as if it were in essence completely other, until at last he is able to unlock its secrets, and then these secrets become his private possession. And in the exercise of these secrets, in carrying out his dreams and his hopes and his aspirations, he feels under no moral obligation to have any regard for this wider encompassing world of nature out of which he came and from which his secrets come. So that we find him today with a secret in his hand, as if the secret were not a part of the encompassing whole of which he is a part. And because of this secret and the power that it generates, and all of the utilitarian aspects by which the secret manifests itself, the results of the secret become for him, for modern man, an instrument of violence by which he is able, either by threat or by act, to enforce and to implant his will upon other people. And if they will not say yes, the secret will make them say yes. So we find ourselves today with two great monoliths in our society. We are one, and the Soviet Union is the other. And each has the secret. And each has in his power the ability to act as if man were not a part of the encompassing whole, so that he can think in turn, not merely of the cessation of human life, but he can dare to think in terms of the wiping out of all of the elements in the encompassing whole that sustains him as an individual. And we are confronted then with two very fundamental problems here. One is, how can we think about the possibility of the discontinuity of the human race? And this means, think hard for just a minute, this means that for the first time in human history, we are faced with the possibility of the loss of the human race's experience of the remnant. And the remnant, the concept of the remnant, is the ground of all of the gross optimism that man has about the future. For you see, always there is lurking in the background of man's mind, whatever may be the exigencies of the moment, however devastating and catastrophic they may be, always lurking in the background, there is the notion, the tutoring notion, that there will be somebody left to carry on that which has been interrupted and broken by the act in the present. So this is the ground of hope. This is what is meant by the growing edge. It is this that the prophet talks about. This is what the seers dream about. This is the meaning of the concept of utopias. All of this is wrapped up in the gross grounding that the remnant is ours to preserve and will be preserved. Now we face the possibility of the discontinuity of the remnant. And if there be no remnant, there is no vehicle that can carry the dream, the unfulfilled aspiration, all the magic of man's dreaming and imagination. There will be available no vehicle for carrying this into the future, where perhaps mankind will be able to think more creatively about the meaning of his responsibility. So our minds are blocked. This is what I'm trying to say. And our thinkers have not begun working on any other possibility, if there be some other possibility. Now, the second thing that is relevant here is that the possibility of destroying all of the encompassing elements that nourish us. We haven't thought much about this. That not merely do we have in our hands the power to destroy man, as if man was some historic unit, as if man was some isolate, as if man was something that was not grounded in the earth and in the world of stuff, as if he was some suspended something. But we have the power of destroying the thing that nourishes life. Not merely the life of man, but that nourishes life. And the kind of arrogance, the kind of madness that this represents is too staggering for my kind of mind to grasp. Now, into this arena, whatever may be all of the political implications that I'm not smart enough to know too much about, and I certainly don't have enough information, whatever may be all of the ambiguities and difficulties in the problem area that is created, I think that there is something for the individual to do in his quest for peace in the world. For Americans, I see my time is up, but I'm not going to stop right this minute. Let me finish, please. For Americans, it means that first of all, there must be a felt sense of collective guilt and responsibility for initiating in the modern world complete violence by atomic bomb. Now, this is the first. That whatever finally is said about the fateful historic moment in which Harry Truman was functioning relevantly, the fact remains that on behalf of us all, he acted. And the guilt, whether he feels it or not, cannot be isolated in these strange and deranged stirrings of that hapless colonel who dropped the bomb. But the guilt is ours. And it has to be felt and sensed and realized. And there is no escape. This is the first thing, it seems to me. And the second thing is that there must, as a part of this, be an effort to try to see if at the level where we operate, we can enter into another kind of moral revolution, a revolution that will undertake to reestablish the moral values by which we have been tutored and in which we have been nurtured, which moral values had to be violated when we took the fateful step. It is an amazing thing how your life and my life are held together by invisible moral values that are part of the common assumptions of the common life. Even though I may not relate to them privately or personally, but here they are, holding the common life in some sort of structure of meaning and significance. And their roots go back into the past. Now, Now, these had to do with certain basic concepts about the worth of an individual. We have not felt as a people that men and women and children who were not involved professionally in carrying out the armed will of a nation should be included. We have not felt that little children should be killed, and women and those non-participators in the active military will of the country. We have not felt this is foreign to us. And now suddenly we find ourselves breaking with that whole assumption in our past by participating in an act that included everybody. Men, women, children, those who are armed, those who are not armed. And this means a radical rupture in the collective psyche of the American people. And this has to be redeemed in some way. And then there's a third thing that I think that we can do, we must do. It is so easy to say that I am just one little human being, and nobody even knows that I'm living except my mother and father and a few friends and the people for whom I work. I really don't count, and it's easy to say that. T.R. Glover, in commenting on the fall of the Roman Empire, has a very instructive phrase that he gives us. He says that the Roman Empire fell not because of the failure of the hay crop and a lot of other crops and the rainfall and all these things that belong to a certain interpretation, economic interpretation of history. But the Roman Empire fell because the average Roman citizen lost his sense of personal responsibility for the fate of the empire. And this is what I'm saying, that we, each one of us, must have a sense of responsibility, not merely for the fates of America, but for the fate of the world. And we must, at the level of our availability to life, seek to reproduce in the quality and kinds of our experiences the kind of life that we feel is the good life, the healthy life, the peaceful life for mankind, so that I will not condemn in the great outer world where decisions are made by Khrushchev and Kennedy and de Gaulle and all these other power magnates in our time, that I will not give them the prerogative of making those decisions unmindful of me. And in my house, and in my city, and in my state, and in my region, I shall be free to affirm my commitment to peace all the way up to the citadels of power, because at the level of my own life, I affirm my commitment to peace. And finally, in doing this, I reject the commitment to extermination on the grounds not only because it is immoral, but because I have no right to act on behalf of existence. So I will practice my commitment to peace, and I will carry its assignment through all the levels of the common life, and I will make my voice heard. I will involve myself with a deep sense not only of atonement for collective guilt, but also I will seek to repair the damages that have been done to the morality out of which our whole life has been spawned. And not only will I do this, but through all ways available to me, within the resources that I can back with my life, I will be heard. And who knows? Who knows? If those who are in power, for reasons that I cannot understand or fathom, cannot act, then it behooves every man to act. That the dream of God for us will not perish from the earth. Let us do that. It is not nothing. Forgive us, our Father, for all the things of which we are so poignantly aware in this waiting hour, and for those failures of will that have made it so difficult for us to respond to thy will. Walk with us in the long, perilous journey that stretches out before us, and give to our fainting footsteps the great, strong rhythm